That summer I had no face, part 2. My toys had moved. Every doll, every stuffed animal, their heads were turned towards me. I closed my eyes trying to convince myself I was imagining it. I opened the lid just a little and heard another crack and again the distant laugh. But now it was more like a hysterical cackle, almost mechanical, repeating in the same pattern, louder and louder. I saw my own throat. My skin looked ashen and dry. I could see my discolored veins. Every set of eyes on every poster turned towards me. And it was only now that I noticed that everything looked different. Every toy, every picture, anything with a pair of eyes. The entire room was staring at me intently. Their eyes had changed color. They looked like mine. I kept opening the box slowly. Something in me wanted to close it, to throw it away. There was a banging noise like distant thunder, and that ever-growing laugh. I saw my chin, withered skin, breaking into something pale. I held my hand up, about to touch my own face, to feel it out. I know, I shouldn't. I know there were rules, but in the edge of the reflection, I saw my hand come closer. And as I touched my skin with the edge of my index finger, I swear I felt bone. Then my reflection moved. My mom burst through the door. She'd been trying to get my attention by banging on the door, but it was as if I had been hypnotized. She came in with her eyes closed, wielding a hammer from Dad's toolbox. "Put it down," she screamed. "Put it down now." I put the jewelry box down. Seconds later, she fell to her knees and smashed it to pieces. She kept hitting it over and over until her arm grew weak. When she couldn't hit it anymore, she just dropped the hammer to the floor. She ripped the pillowcase from my bed and wrapped it around my head. When I could no longer see her, she took her blindfold off and wrapped her arms around me. She cried in a way I'd never seen before, like a wailing child. These big, hulking sobs. She hugged me so tight that I had trouble breathing through the pillowcase. Leah, please," she cried. "You have to listen to me. You have to listen." "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry too, honey. I'm so sorry." That night made me realize that there was more to this than I understood. My mom and dad were doing this for a good reason. I decided to just hunker down and do what I was told, to see this as being sick, watching movies, eating snacks, and just waiting for it to be over. I didn't mind anymore. We were in this together. Over the next few days, things started to turn into a new kind of normal. I spent most of my time with my mom just hanging out, watching TV, playing games on our shared computer. I was obsessed with The Sims, and I got to play as much as I wanted. Mom would sit next to me, asking me about the characters and the stories I was making up. She even let me take off the oven mitts, as long as I kept the bag on. We'd also made a cover using the pillowcase she'd ripped up, so I had a more comfortable option. But I was often reminded that something was wrong. Dad wouldn't come home until late in the night, and I had to keep lying to Imani about why we couldn't hang out. Mom just gave me this apologetic look, but didn't say anything. We trusted one another now. It was a white lie. Everything would be okay. I lived like that for 3 weeks. I stopped questioning it. I stopped trying. I went through the motions and hoped it'd be over. Sometimes, I'd sit by a gap in my taped up window, just watching the people outside pass me, much like the Sims in my game. At times, I imagined them turning towards me, looking at me with my own eyes. Sometimes, they really did. One night, when Dad came back, something was wrong. They usually talked a little, and then he went straight to bed. This time, they sat up long into the night. My mom had stopped locking me in my room, so I sneaked out to listen. They were being more quiet than usual, and I couldn't help myself. "We gotta bring her," Dad said. "She has to be there." "We can't," Mom cried. "We can't. She'll never be the same." "You said we should handle it. This is how we handle it." "But she doesn't want to be there. We can just..." "She has to be there, and she has to do it." The next day, Dad didn't go anywhere. He sat with me while Mom prepared breakfast. He gave Mom a long look, sighed, and turned to me. I met his eyes from behind my sunglasses. "Leah, honey, we're going on a trip tonight." "Outside?" Yeah, he smiled. "We're going on a trip, but I need you to be very careful and listen really closely. Can you do that?" "Sure, yeah," I nodded. "Where are we going?" "We're gonna make you okay, honey." "You are?" Dad nodded. He kept his smile firm. but it wasn't genuine. I could tell. That night, Mom and Dad came into my room. I wrapped my head in a new pillowcase that didn't have any holes for my eyes. I couldn't see, and they also gave me a pair of earmuffs so that I couldn't hear, and I had trouble breathing through the fabric. Mom gave me a big hug. "You can do this," she said. "Stay strong, be patient, and do what you need to do." They took me to the car, put me in the back seat, and drove off. I heard them talking in the background, but the earmuffs blocked most of it. I picked up a yeah or a no every now and then. I just sat there with my arms crossed, trying my best to stay calm. Whatever was going on felt bad. Again, like we were doing something we shouldn't. I could feel the road shift. It went from the smooth asphalt to gravel, and then a bumpy dirt road. I had to steady myself against the door to keep my earmuffs on. I could hear a low, "Sorry, honey," from my mom. I reminded myself to do what she said. Be patient, be strong. After what felt like an eternity, the car stopped, still seeing nothing. The car door opened, and a hand led me outside. I'd recognize Mom's hand anywhere. It was all I needed to feel safe. She led me through a forest path, down a short hill, and into a clearing. Mom and Dad asked each other really quiet questions, mostly just one or two words. The only one I caught was, "Here." Finally, I heard my dad shout something. Mom pushed the earmuffs closer together, blocking everything but my own heartbeat. I could feel water seeping into my sneakers. There was an argument, something loud and angry. Dad rushed past me. I felt the texture of his jacket brush against my arm. Another scream, a back and forth. Mom took off the earmuffs. She put something warm in my hands, something heavy, something metallic. You have to take it off," Dad said. "She has to see her. It has to transfer." Mom didn't respond. She just kept sobbing as she unwrapped the pillowcase. Everything was blurry while my eyes adjusted. Shades of black and withered green. Blue petals from a flower crushed under my sneaker. We were deep in the woods. I could feel a faint breeze, making the hairs on my arms stand up. I felt nothing on my face. However, nothing at all. And right there, collapsed in the soggy moss, was the little girl I'd met by Frog Lake. She was tied up and placed on the ground in front of me. I was holding a handgun. I didn't know it at the time, but the safety was off. "Honey, listen," said Mom. "You have to do this. It has to be you. Don't think, just point at it and squeeze the trigger, okay? Leah, honey, follow my lead." Dad was standing on the side, closing his eyes. His hands were bloody. The girl dropped in front of me looked like me, but there was something off about her. I couldn't quite put my finger on a single thing. It wasn't just the hair. There were slight differences overall. Her eyes were a little further apart, her chin a bit longer. She looked like me, but it wasn't really me. "It's not fair," the girl screamed. "You made a deal." "Don't listen to it, honey. Don't listen. Just aim down the sight and..." "She came to me willingly. She set me loose. You owe me. It's evil. It's not human. You can't listen, Leah." I looked at the girl who had my eyes, my face. "They threw me away just to get you?" she spat. "What makes you so special? Why'd you get to be?" "What's she saying, Mom?" I asked. "What does she mean?" "Leah, just do what I tell you. Be strong. There are no miracles," the girl screamed. "Some prices are just higher than others. There are no miracles. You are no miracle." I could see her losing herself, the bone structure of her skull pushing against my ill-fitting face, eyes losing their color, hair withering as her scalp was laid barren, bantu knots dropping like little pine cones. She shrieked at me with a manic smile on my face. She was becoming less of a girl and more of a thing. "One or none," they said. "One or none. One or none." She twitched closer before my dad put his boot on her back, pushing her into the wet moss. "Guess which one of us got the one and which one got dumped in a lake with nothing but a bracelet." I looked up at my mom. She met my gaze. She couldn't help but to look at me, and she saw something she shouldn't have. I don't know what she looked at in that moment, but her eyes dilated and a scream got stuck in her throat. Her eyes crossed as she fell backwards, struggling to breathe. My dad came up behind me, pointed my head forward and aimed my arms for me. All I had to do was pull the trigger, and I'd save everyone. Mom, Dad, I'd get my face back. Remember this, the girl thing purred. Remember this every time you look yourself in that goddamn mirror, little miracle. I squeezed the trigger and the gun went off. For a moment, the world stood still. In the muzzle flash, I had this brief image of sitting on that park bench next to Frog Lake, holding hands with a sister I never had, a sister that was never truly born, dropped unceremoniously into the depths of the lake, a promise fulfilled to a power below. But in that eternal moment, in the white flash of the gun, we were just sitting on the bench together, holding hands. What happened afterwards is a bit of a blur. My mom was taken to the hospital. I didn't have to wear the pillowcase anymore. My dad threw the gun in a lake, and then we never talked about any of that ever again. Not that we got much chance to. Weeks later, my mom got diagnosed with cervical cancer. She lasted 4 years. My dad died of brain aneurysm on my 17th birthday. I moved out of Tom's Cog, Minnesota to live with my aunt in West Virginia. I'd spend my time at the computer. It started with mods for games and slowly turned into front-end programming. Got a nice job, nice benefits, and a move to Orlando to work at a proper office. I've been working there ever since, going on, 11 years? I've had no one to talk about it with, and medical professions don't really agree with the whole notion of giving their mental patient the benefit of the doubt.